Hey Shogi fans, let me know if this sounds familiar. You're faced with a new checkmate puzzle, and no matter how much you look at it, the answer is just not coming to you. You've even resorted to setting the Tsume up on your board, and now you're trying every single possible legal move to see if you can somehow brute force the solution. Maybe you even heard someone make a comment about how the puzzle's really easy, and that's only making things worse for you, because you can't possibly imagine what'll happen even after your first move. The good news is that you're not alone. Just about every shogi player in history, except maybe for Sota Fuji, has gone through this stage, and generally it's just a matter of practice to get to the point where you can look at a Tsume and see the themes at a glance. But I want to try to cut that practice time down because there are methods you can take in your Tsumeshogi practice to speed up your game. This video is based on the article How to Solve Tsumeshogi Problems by David Murphy from issue 67 of the Shogi magazine, published in 1986. You can still buy PDF scans of the entire collection of this magazine, so I highly recommend getting them, as they're full of a lot of really good knowledge from the classic Western Shogi days. So if you have any sort of practice with Tsume Shogi, you're no doubt aware of the rules and assumptions of it. You're presumably in a situation where you will be mated on the next move no matter what you do, and your only hope of victory is forcing a win by checking the king with every move. So, knowing that, let's take a look at the first problem. The first thing most newer players would do upon seeing this is to look at every single check one by one and see what the follow for each would be. So let's go ahead and do that. Starting with the checks the dragon can make, you've got Dragon 3-1, Dragon 3-2, Dragon 2-2, Dragon 2-3, and Dragon 2-4. And then for golds, we've got Gold 3-2, Gold 2-3, Gold 2-4, Gold 3-4, and finally for silver, we've got Silver 2-2, Silver 2-3, Silver 4-2, and Silver 3-4. Whew, that's a lot of moves. The first thing we're going to do is simply eliminate a lot of these moves on the basis that, except for a few certain situations like smothered mates and double checks, your final mating shape will need to have some defense for the piece that's delivering the final blow. With that in mind, in this problem we can already eliminate every move which will allow the dragon to be captured. That would be Dragon 3-2, all these moves, that puts it right next to the king. That brings us from 13 possible moves all the way down to 9, which speeds us up a good deal as we're throwing out almost a third of the moves that we no longer have to do any reading on. The next thing we're going to do is look at what exactly we're accomplishing with that dragon. It's always a good idea to ask yourself, what is that piece doing there whenever you see a new Tsume, because just based on the composition you can find hints to the answer. This also helps emulate the feel of a real game, because you must have had a reason for putting that dragon there if you were playing. Anyway, we see that the dragon is exerting tremendous pressure on the second file and the first rank, which is trapping the king on the third file except for a couple of very narrow pathways. Just based on this, we can kind of conclude that we're not going to be making this check at Dragon 3-1, because that will just allow the king this wide open space to escape. So that's going to get rid of another move. So now that we've cut the potential moves down to 8, we now know that the first move is going to be dropping a middle piece. So let's check them out. After gold drop 3-2, the king can just kind of get down here. If you try to chase it with silver, then it's just going to get away. Dropping it to 2-3 doesn't really work either, because the king can just run, and it's eventually going to get away, taking that pawn. If you drop the silver to 2-2, well, now you're blocking the dragon's influence. So the king has this big wide area to get out of. So we've encountered our first major problem area. We need to not let the king get away on the second file, so we're just gonna force him up the board with gold 2-4, king runs to 4-2, and man, if only that silver wasn't there, we could drop our own silver to checkmate. So we've got a lot of influence here, a lot of stuff going on here, but unfortunately we just don't quite have the material to mate. If you try to do that, then the king just gets away all the way to this left side. So having tried all those moves, we now know that we should probably save the gold for the end, which is a proverb, by the way. So now we're going to try silver 2-4, and oh man, we're running into that same issue we had before where we're blocking our dragon. So now we're out of options to make moves that are anchored by another piece, so now it's time to look at the more wild moves. The streamer Shogi Explained often gives the advice, always look at the craziest sacrifices first, and in many cases this is actually true. Looking back at the beginning of the problem, we know that there were 13 possible moves, and 3 of them are sacrifices. So it actually would have been faster to start with the sacrifices. In a game, it does feel bad to give up a piece for seemingly nothing, but the main purpose of sacrifices in mating situations is to lure the king into a position where it's not safe. Remember the proverb, in the endgame, speed is more important than material. So now we have a decision to make. Which direction do we force the king to move to? Do we push him to 3-4 or 4-2? So let's take a look at them. Let's try gold 3-4 first, and oh no, that's not going to work because we're going to run into the same problem we had before. So let's try silver. Try silver 3-4. If the king takes it, then we can drop the gold, chase the king up here, and oh look, we're actually in that same situation where the king is on 4-2, except this time we don't have a silver. If only we had another piece. Oh, right. Now that we've determined that 4-2 is the critical square, we're actually ready to checkmate the king. So let's drop a silver on 4-2. If the king runs, then we can just drop the gold onto 5 and its mate, because the silver is covering his retreat, rook is covering all that, and the pawn is covering here. Cool, right? So his only option is to take the silver, and we can just drop a gold on the belly, and he is checkmated. That was a lot of time and effort for a 3-move problem, but we finally got there. It can be said that the key to Tsumeshogi is piece sacrifice. There's so many ways you can use sacrifices to lead to checkmate, from forcing the king into a position like this problem, to distracting defending pieces, and many more. Let's look at another problem. In this position, the king is so close to being mated, but that gold is doing a pretty good job of defending against the drops. We've just got a silver here, so we can't drop it on the king's head because he'll just get away, right? And you can't check with the dragon because the king will just escape to 5-2. So we've already established our problem square, which is 5-2. So now let's take care of that problem. How can we check with the dragon without letting the king onto 4-2? Well, you may have already found the answer. It is silver 5-2. The only legal move the king has is to take it with the gold. That closes off that square, and now the dragon can come in for the checkmate. And finally, I want to look at one more problem. Looking at this one, we can see right away some moves we'd really like to make. Silver 4-3 looks tempting, but unfortunately once the king runs to 5-5, he'll be able to capture that pawn, and there's not much you can do about that. Dragon 4-5 looks like a pretty cool sacrifice, but once the pawn takes it, then the horse is actually doing a really good job defending here, so we can throw that one out too. If you take a look at the whole situation, the king has basically 2 escape paths, one down to 5-5 and then 4-6, and then one to 6-5. This one in particular is a pattern that you should look out for because the silver's blind spots are a very good spot for a king to hide in. So let's once again ask, what's this piece doing here? Why is it blocking the horse? If you can answer that question, as well as try to stop the king from getting to these 2 squares, then the rest of the puzzle actually falls into place. So let's go ahead and drop a rook on 5-5. The king has 2 moves he could make. Firstly, let's take it with the horse. In that case, we just move the horse over. That's going to defend that square, and the king is checkmated. If the king captures it, now you see why this pawn is here, because it sets up for this pin, And we can just move the rook down. The pawn is pinned so I can't take the dragon, and the king is checkmated. There's much more that could be said, and many books that have been written on the subject, but I hope this video could give you a head start on how to approach Tsume problems from now on. I'd like to summarize it by reinforcing 3 basic points. 1. Look at sacrifices first. 2. Ask why the pieces are on their squares. And 3. Identify the squares the king wants to go to the most. Just by learning to apply these points to their problem solving, I believe a beginner could quickly double the speed at which they solve Tsumeshogi, and likewise read more efficiently so they spend less thinking time in their games. Do you have any other ideas that can help solve Tsume more efficiently? Let me know in the comments, and don't forget to like and subscribe for more Shogi videos. I'm Rico with Shogi House, and I'll see you all next time.